This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride, 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 ride. Roller coaster. Ride, ride. Roller coaster. Ride. Roller coaster. Ride, ride, ride.
Okay, well, welcome to another episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Today, I have with me Sarah, and Sarah's business is the Power to Reinvent. And it's really cool. I actually first met Sarah through Instagram, and I believe you had tagged me in a post you made about another podcast. I think the podcast was called The Maverick Show.
Yeah.
And you had tagged me, and we just started chatting back and forth. And I found everything that you're doing was really interesting. So welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's really lovely to connect. And I think that's the beauty of kind of the world of Instagram and social media is, that ability to draw connections and like all across the world. It's amazing.
It is. And I was really touched when you sort of tagged me, and then I'm like, this is really cool. And through our conversations, you started telling me that you are a digital nomad.
I am a digital nomad, yes. So I've been working online for nearly 2 years now. It was a real life-changing decision, to say the least. So back in 2016, myself and my husband, who also works online, we sold our house, sold all our stuff. I mean, everything. Like I travel now with a backpack. We sold our car. We quit our really successful jobs. And we didn't really have a plan. And in fact, I didn't know that much about working online other than I'd read a few blogs and it sounded cool and like the type of lifestyle I would want to do. And it's been an incredible journey. It really has been. It's been testing at times, following your dreams, but the rewards are so worth it.
And what's really exciting for me is you're doing what I want to be doing.
Oh, yeah.
My husband has been working, he worked remotely for 10, 15 years, and that sort of enabled us to live in a different part of Canada. And then we sort of since moved back to where we're originally from, which is Ottawa. And we're starting to get to the point where our kids are, well, they're not really kids, they're 17 and 20. You know, that nest is going to be empty soon. And then we're sitting there going, ooh, what can we do?
All the adventures you can have.
And then we sort of, and then I connected with you. And I actually hadn't heard the term digital nomad before. Mm-hmm. I heard of laptop life and flip-flop life and stuff like that. But then I started talking to you and how you did it. And it was really interesting because you're 2 years in, so you're still very new on this journey and building the business.
Very new. And I actually didn't know the term digital nomad either before I left. And then I love this quote from Paulo Coelho, from The Alchemist. And, kind of when you follow your dreams, the whole universe conspires to help you. And I feel like when I made that move, just people started to show up in my life. And we went to this island in Malaysia, and there was a guy there who worked online. And it was this tiny little remote island, hardly anyone there. And he said, you need to go to Chiang Mai in Thailand. Like, that is just where all the digital nomads kind of like hang out. And I was like, digital what? Like, what is this? And so we based ourselves there for the first 6 months. And it was literally, like, no exaggeration, hundreds of people from all walks of life who based themselves in this particular part of northern Thailand, and share ideas and really build a community. And they taught me so much. I taught myself web design there, social media, skills that I could never have done. And they don't charge for it. Everyone just helps each other out. So that was that was instrumental, really. And I don't think without that community of people, I would be in the position that I am today.
Well, Thailand is definitely our first stop.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's amazing, and it's so great for bootstrapping your business. You know, the costs are low. You can still have a really nice quality of life. The food's great. So yeah, I'm a big advocate of Thailand for sure.
So you've obviously had to build an online business. So what are you doing now? What are you doing to support your digital nomad lifestyle?
So my background previously was in coaching and psychology. So I worked in that area for 10 years professionally in business coaching and job coaching. And when I first started up, actually, I didn't know if that's what I wanted to do because I'd always done it face to face. And then after a few months of doing a bit of Amazon FBA, a bit of blogging, you know, bits and pieces of work, I just kept coming back to, I miss that. I miss that interaction with people. I miss the mindset work. And so I set up the Power to Reinvent in November 2017. And it originally just started as an Instagram account, kind of a place for me just to share ideas and share thoughts. And then the followers started to grow. And then people started messaging me saying, you know, do you offer client services? I got in touch with some other previous clients that I'd worked with before in the UK. And it just grew naturally from there. So at the minute, I primarily work with clients online, one-to-one. And then again, off the back of social media, I actually secured a book deal. So I'm writing my first book at the minute on the psychology of how to find your flow, which is really, really exciting. So a combination of different things, but the main focus being I work with individuals to help them prioritize their goals so they can build the joyful life that they deserve. I think I focus on that area because it's very relevant in my own life where you feel this call and you want your life to have meaning and purpose. And when you leave this earth, you want to kind of just be like, I'm ready to go. And I rocked it. And that was absolutely awesome. Like that is my deathbed vision. When I close my eyes, I want to know I made the most out of this experience. And I think generally most people do want that. But the struggle is, where do you put your energy? How do you prioritize? How do you navigate your dreams in such a busy world where everybody wants or needs your attention, where there's guilt and obligation, you know, where there's roles and responsibilities? And so my job and my passion is to help people navigate that so they can live their big dreams and they can do the things that they really, really want to do and be their authentic selves.
That's really cool. And so my question is, when you're working with people, if you take somebody, I'm still at the very beginning of my journey. You know, I've got the podcast, I've got a website, I'm starting to publish blogs, I'm writing an ebook. So I'm starting to do all of those little things. But what about the person, you know, somebody that's even before that stage where they're still the dreamer? You know, what are some of the tips and suggestions that you have for those people to help them, you know, really take that leap of faith to, yeah, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think so often people wait for the big moment and the big opportunity, and they can't do it until everything falls into place. But I think when you break it down and you look at it as prototyping and testing and part of the journey, so just small incremental steps every day that gradually build up. And then all of a sudden you're kind of there effortlessly without even realizing it. And I think encouraging people just to take some form of small action, you know, whether it's I'm going to set up a social media account, you know, and test the message and get it out there. You know, I'm going to go and join a club and talk to people who are doing living a lifestyle similar to the way that I want to do. Just little small steps, and know that you're never going to know the full answer. Like if I have learned anything from working with businesses and successful people, it's that no one really knows what they're doing. They're just doing it with the best, with like the information that they have at the minute and to the best of their knowledge. But I think often you can look at people, idealize them, put them on a pedestal and think, well, it's okay for them, but I could never do that. And the reality is we're all capable of it, and just going out and trying and knowing that it doesn't really matter if it doesn't work out. In fact, you're going to fail, you're going to make mistakes, and they don't matter because they're learning opportunities. And I think when you reframe that and you just enjoy the experience of your goals, that's where the real beauty lies. The goal isn't necessarily the most important thing. I think so many of us can identify with, we set the goal and we achieve it, and then we get there and we're like, is that it? Like, what do I do now? You're on to the next thing quite quickly. But if you can train your brain and your mind and your mindset to just be like, this is an amazing journey. This is an awesome journey. It doesn't matter even if I don't get there. I am having a whale of a time just, exploring and finding it out. That's what it is to live.
And that's it exactly. And that's sort of, part of what I'm hoping to share with people is, no, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I didn't really have a clue. When I started the podcast, it was, I like to talk. I love great conversation. I'm going to give this a try. And I set up my first episodes, and, we got some momentum and we got going, and it was, I really felt like I was in my place. And then from there, I started to, I already had the Instagram and the Facebook. I have a background in marketing, so those things were, touch easier for me. So I started improving on those. But then, I sort of get to the point and I'm like, okay, well, how do I take what I'm doing and monetize it so I can be sitting in Thailand with all the other digital nomads trying to figure out our next big what?
Yeah.
And it's putting that all together and just trying to follow the path and no, it's not perfect. And I don't want anyone looking at me and thinking I've got it all figured out, that I know what I'm doing, that I have this big, massive master plan. I don't have any of that. But what I do have is I'm going to say I have the courage just to step forward and try, which is one of the hardest things. And also, I accept that it's the journey. It is that, and that's where the roller coaster comes from. It's that wild journey. You have your ups, you have your downs. I mean, I have self-doubt and I have, what am I doing? Am I crazy? And then you start to swing back up and you're like, oh, this is cool. I'm loving it. This is so great. Yoo-hoo. And then, you're going to go back down.
And I love that. And I think, that's the type of honest conversation that we really need in society, that we need to kind of be more grown up about the conversation and more honest and say, it's not all going to be the super high of like, do this and all of a sudden you're in, the land of happiness where nothing can ever go wrong. That just isn't life. Part of the joy and kind of the relief of life, just knowing it's not like there's going to be ups and downs, but that's okay. That doesn't mean that I'm on the wrong path. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me. It doesn't mean my energy's off. It just means that you're alive and you're human. I don't know anybody that hasn't struggled in some way, shape, or form. And in fact, so many amazing people, would cite their struggles as like the single biggest turning point in their life. And if I reflect back on my own before I made the decision to move, at that stage, I just knew that I wasn't happy. It was like a silent struggle. That's the only way I can describe it. Everything on the surface looked great. And inside, I just felt like a caricature just playing out a role. I just knew that all these things that were meant to make me happy just weren't. And I wasn't like where I needed to be. I think like the more people can just be honest about that and say, just enjoy the journey, embrace it. It's going to be that roller coaster. And I love that analogy. I really love that analogy.
Yeah, I can really relate to, what you're saying about you didn't know what was wrong, but you knew that you weren't in the right place. You weren't doing the right thing and you had to make some sort of move. But I'm going to ask you, making that move probably wasn't easy in relation to trying to explain it to your family.
Oh, my word. Yeah, that was really not easy. So we did it over Christmas. I don't know if that was a really good idea.
Because Christmas isn't loaded with enough problems.
I know. So yeah, myself and my husband have been married then for I think 3 years, and I think everybody was kind of expecting, like the grandchild, or, like this is what they're going to do, as opposed to, hey, we're going to sell everything and, we're just going to go off. And I think the reaction, I have to say, both my in-laws and my own mum, were great about it. They were quite silent over it. It was almost just like, we don't really know what to say, but hopefully they come to their senses. Like maybe it's just, maybe they're not actually going to go through with it. But it was difficult. And I think the hardest thing was, it was probably the first time that I didn't really have a plan. And I was always that girl that knew where she was going to next, what she wanted, like quite driven. And yeah, I just released all that, because I just thought, I've done this so far, and I've had a lot of happy times, and I wouldn't say that but I just reached a point where I was like, I know this is not where I'm meant to be. And trying to explain that to your family is really confusing, because they're like, but you've got a great job and you've got a house, what else could you possibly want from life? You're married, you're happy, and you can't quantify it. It's just, it was at night, I would lie down, and it was almost like my heart just whispered to me. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. It wasn't a thought, it wasn't a story, it was just like this whisper of like, there has to be more to life than this. You've just, like, you've got to go. And it was illogical and it was irrational. But yet every part of me, every bone in my body knew that that's where I had to go, and I couldn't describe it. It wasn't a rational plan, but it was an intuitive plan, I guess. It was just all based on intuition.
Yeah, and that's very similar to sort of my story, because we were living in Nova Scotia on the eastern coast of Canada, originally from Ottawa, and our oldest was getting set to go to university, and that's when it struck me, what's next? And I started getting this feeling, and I guess, old school, some people, not that I consider myself midlife, but I probably am, midlife crisis, and, I'm going to go do something crazy. But I just couldn't shake this feeling that, no, this is wrong. This is not what I'm supposed to be doing. It's like, I intuitively knew that this chapter of my life was closing, and I had to go on to the next one.
Yeah.
And for me, and I sort of said, okay, our son was moving to Toronto. We're going to go back to Ottawa, because that's, a few hours from him. But my husband had a different thought, and he didn't see eye to eye with me. So that kind of led to some tensions, and, it again, on that roller coaster, things really went down. Before you go on a big, massive sweep, you have to go down.
Yes.
And it was through that, and we had some struggles, and I moved to Ottawa thinking, okay, yeah, everything's going to be great. I'm going to get a job. I'm going to do this, and no, didn't work out that way. So it really did take me hitting that rock bottom just to be forced to figure this stuff out. But as soon as I did, things started to swing up. And like I said, it's not that we, don't have your dips again, but that feeling of, and obviously we're not the only ones. And I hope anybody that hears our stories can relate to it and, reach out, and if they want to share theirs. But it's just that feeling of no, this is all wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you've termed it, like a different chapter, because I think that that's really what it is. It's not that life was bad or miserable like beforehand. It's just that chapter was ready to close. And I think so often in life, people, and I think I definitely did, before I made the move, I stayed too long in a chapter. It was trying to wrap up. It was trying to say to me, it was, all the signals were there. It's not right, but I just overstood my welcome a little bit. And I don't know if you're familiar with like Joseph Campbell's, the hero's journey.
Oh,
And
yes.
And I really relate to that. I just think, like you answer the call and then you've got to go into battle, and there's so much to that. I would encourage anyone, like you said, who feels that, and even if you don't know what it is, I didn't know what it is, I just knew I wasn't in the right place, is to really listen and tap into that, because when you do, just life changes in just the most magical, incredible, weird and wonderful ways, and you just feel like you're home. Like I feel like I travel all the time, but I feel like I'm at home with myself a lot more, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense, because for me, when I look back at the videos of my previous podcast shows, when I don't notice that the camera's there on me. I mean, this is a different situation, you're sort of looking at the camera, but when I don't notice the camera's on me, and I just look and I'm like, that girl is completely in her place. When I look at myself, it's like I'm there doing what I'm supposed to be doing, whatever that's supposed to be is. Just going back to what you were saying about being stuck in your chapter too long, and you had the house and all of that. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you were stuck because you were trying to fit into those boxes that society puts on us, that you go to school, you get the degree, you start the career, you get the house, you get married, you do this?
Yes.
Do you think that you were stuck trying to tick all those boxes?
Very much so. I just followed the blueprint of success. I followed what I had been told that was going to make me happy. I am relatively, it doesn't sound it because I've moved and sold everything, but generally I'm relatively risk adverse in nature. And yes, I followed that plan, and actually I got really frustrated with myself, because I looked at others and compared myself with others who were really, really happy with everything that they had. And I thought, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with you? And I blame myself for being ungrateful. I thought maybe I had like deeper issues. I don't know. I went into this really dark place with myself. And it was none of that. I spent so long looking at other people, what they were doing. Oh, they look happy over there. Maybe if I get that, then I'll be happy like them too. Rather than working out my chapter, what story did I want my life to tell? What made me happy? And I think the turning point, I know the exact turning point in this. I went to this seminar, and it was in the January, and it was Jillian Michaels, from The Biggest Loser.
Yeah.
And she asked this question in the audience, and she said, think of 3 things that make you really happy, not what something that you just do for yourself, not for other people. And I couldn't answer it. And as I looked around the room and people were writing things down, I was like, I've lost so much of myself that I'm really confused about whether I do that because the other person likes it or whether I'm doing it for myself. And I remember at that point thinking, I've gone too far into other people's stories, and I've become characters in theirs, and I've totally lost myself in this process. And that was really scary. 3 things, and I really couldn't think of one.
No, and I probably would have had a hard time, 2 years ago coming up with that as well, because, I'd spent, so much time invested as a mother. And, my husband had a busy career. So it was being that wife and mother that when I suddenly got to that point where it was, okay, this being active in your kid's life all the time is going to start to change quite quickly. What am I going to do? And I know that's going to be something that a lot of mothers are going to struggle with. You do hear a lot of stories about the empty nest syndrome, although the empty nest it's not getting emptied as quickly now because of the economy and kids going to school and stuff like that. But eventually, your kids do rely on you less. Essentially right now we're we're actually 5 adults living in the house because we have our 2 boys and then my son's girlfriend lives with us. And it's, everyone's got a busy schedule going in different ways. And my role as a mother is very, very different. In fact, I think it's more of a ringleader sometimes. Just trying to keep all the moving parts organized. But it's a really hard thing to sort of make that transition of your kids needing so much from you to being, no, wait a second, what about me and who's Lucy? And I had no clue. I had no clue who Lucy was. And that's the journey that I've been on is figuring out who she is. And being brave about sharing that with other people because, all too often we look at everybody else's newsfeed on Facebook and, we see those holiday pictures, we see the smiling kids, we see all of this, but then you don't know the shit that happens behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And absolutely. And I think, it's so incredible and it's very courageous of you to put your voice out there. And I think there's so many people out there that silently struggle. They stick on the smile and the mask and, how's everything going? Fine. I'm busy, just all the kind of like the rhetoric that you kind of rolls out of your mouth. And it's the hard thing to describe. We're describing our process, like, it just didn't feel right. And it's a very difficult conversation to have when everything around you looks right and you just don't feel okay about it. It's hard to pinpoint. And I think the temptation then is to like push it down and ignore it and just kind of like turn the opposite way and pretend that it's not happening. And I think the bravest point is like when you answer that call and you turn towards it, you go, okay, what's going on here? Why can I not list 3 things? Why do I not know who Lucy is? How do I even start that journey? And it's overwhelming. But I think to really enjoy and create a meaningful life, that is a necessary thing that you have to do is really figure out, who you are and what you want, as opposed to just mimicking kind of everyone around you.
Yeah, definitely. Now, you're originally from Ireland.
Yes, from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Yeah,
hence the accent.
Yes.
So where in the world are you right now?
So I'm in Copenhagen in Denmark right now, which is a beautiful place to be. It's the 4th happiest place in the world, and I can definitely see why. It's really, really lovely. So we're here for the next, I think another 3 or 4 months at least, because I'm working on the book and my husband's doing a bit of work as well here. And then who knows next? I don't know. I think back to Asia somewhere. So, but yeah, Copenhagen at the minute.
Excellent. So where can people reach you online to learn more about the services that you offer, to help them on their journeys?
Yep. So you can head over to Instagram. That's probably the main place. And it's at The Power to Reinvent. And then I've got a website as well, thepowertoreinvent.com. So if anything has kind of resonated with you, even if you just want to pop a message and have a chat, I'm always open. If there's any little thing that I can do just to nudge a listener along that journey, then I'd love to hear from them.
Yeah, you've definitely been great about nudging me along. So
I'm so excited for you.
You're writing a book. When can we expect to see a book out?
Yeah, so my book is out January 2020. So I've got a little bit to go. I need to finish it by June, which is exciting, scary, all those emotions. And then it'll be released in the new year. So keep your eye out for that. It's going to be a great book. It's the world's, I think it's the world. I'm trying to research at the minute, but it's the first model that takes the psychology of flow and then applies it to a morning and evening ritual. So it's really easy to implement.
Excellent. Well, I'll definitely have you back on so we can chat more about flow and look forward to seeing that book come out.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to hearing more from you.
And thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. And I'm really excited to see that roller coaster journey of yours continue.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lucy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.
Life is like